Hey there, friends. I'm working on a video for tomorrow that's taking up a lot of my resources, but I did want to put something out today, very short video, that talks about some of the problems that we're seeing now start to surface and rear their ugly head out west with the California wildfires. This next clip I'm about to show you is from, I believe it's a city council meeting, but it's a meeting on talking about the budget and the massive budget cuts that Karen Bass, the mayor in Los Angeles, was proposing. Remember, she cut out $17.6 million out of the fire department's budget, not overall budget, way bigger cuts than that, specifically out of the fire department. This is a meeting where a lot of folks from the fire department, and surprisingly at the end of this video, you're going to see a city council person come forward and also talk about the dangers of doing this. Now, let me preface this by saying this. I've worked in environments where union workers were. I know how union workers embellish and exaggerate. This guy, the first guy you're going to see on this clip, says if one position is eliminated, all the bad things that can happen. We know that's a lie, and we know that's not true. We know that's bloviating and somebody just simply exaggerating the point. However, I think on a much larger scale, they accumulated this many people who work in the fire department for this meeting. The sheer fact that this many people came together in this meeting to talk about this shows me that there was a concern outside of just overtime hours, that there was a concern of safety. And I do believe these people saw what was happening and realized they may have already been a little bit thin. Now, granted, with overtime hours, a lot of organizations, not just public organizations like this, they abuse overtime hours. So there's a lot of waste there, and a lot of people get used to those overtime hours as being part of their normal payroll. So I understand where that can hurt a family that's, say, over a long course of time, been dependent on that. But clearly I believe there was a safety concern involved here too, because there's no way they would have had this meeting if it was simply about somebody having a couple of overtime hours cut and somebody was butthurt about it.
If we cut one position, if we close one station, if we close one resource, the residents of Los Angeles are going to pay the ultimate sacrifice, and someone will die.
Just last month, fire personnel packed an LA Fire Commission meeting, begging the city to rethink the budget.
These cuts came at exactly the wrong time, with calls for services at an all-time high and our firefighters at their breaking point.
We are straining our department's resources beyond the brink, and we cannot continue on this path.
So this was interesting to me. I mean, these people are calling this out. I want you to understand, this meeting was 21 days prior to the Palisades fire. Less than a month before the fire started. Remember, at that time, they were already in their dry season, the fire season. They knew that. They were sending that warning that people might die from this. I mean, to me, to say that people are going to get mad, we might strike. I mean, if it's truly just a union message, sometimes you can decipher that. These people were talking about the loss of lives in this. And to me, this shows the ineptitude of the mayor, which, by the way, Gavin Newsom will call you a racist if you criticize the mayor, who completely screwed up on all of this. He was taking photo ops over in Africa whenever the initial warnings came out and the winds began to kick up, and was on an airplane flying back over here to cover her own butt while the hills in LA were ablaze. We are seeing evidence across the board that the destruction, the amount of destruction, could have been minimized. I'm not talking about they could have been stopped, which, by the way, if we could keep these arsonists from lighting these fires, the climate change, I didn't know climate change actually had a face and a social security number. And in fact, some cases, I don't think they have social security numbers because they're illegal aliens. But I was not aware that climate change was an actual person. I thought this was just an ideology out there. Apparently it is people. But if we could have got them to stop lighting fires, and if the mayor and the governor and whoever the blue-haired, lesbian, overweight, hair-lit person is that they hired to manage the water that they paid $700-something a year, if they could have gotten all these people to do their jobs instead of having ceremonial jobs actual jobs that had functions that they had to perform. Had they done those things, I believe we would have had less of, if not maybe none, loss of lives, and certainly more homes would be standing today. Again, I don't think that nothing would have happened if everybody would have done their job. Again, we don't know the extent of the arsonist. Maybe the arsonist lit every single one. Maybe this could have been completely prevented if no one lit a fire, right? But I understand the conditions are there. But as far as not clearing the brush, reservoirs empty, all these things out there, people not doing their jobs certainly contributed to the loss of life, not just the loss of homes. I'd also like to point something else out. This, to me, based on the testimony you just saw in this video and all the proof that we've seen going forward, sounds like criminal negligence to me. Criminal negligence, remember guys, this is kind of a referral to when a defendant acts in a disregard of serious risk of harm that a reasonable person in the same situation would have perceived. You can't use, I'm too stupid to have known better. You can't use that. Because if you are an elected official and you are deemed to be a reasonable enough person to be a mayor, then you should be held to the same account to be a reasonable enough person to be able to do your job. And when that's determined to not be the case and you made a bad decision going against all the evidence and proof and warnings that you were given, these people might be held criminally liable.
I don't understand the point that you're making.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America. He's